Yeah, I thought today would be great just as we start tomorrow to kind of have the quarterbacks available for you. So we'll have Kyle, Devin, and Tristan here. Lincoln, as a freshman, we'll let him take a pass on the first time around, but he's done a great job, just coming in and kind of getting thrown to the wolves a little bit this summer with Coach Mick in the weight room and trying to figure out how to take a snap just, with the guys out there when – they're out there working and throwing on their own, but he's doing a good job. But all three of these guys have done a great job this summer, and they're gonna battle it out. It starts. It started in the spring, it continued throughout the summer, and now here we are, first day of spring or summer practice starting tomorrow. So those guys will be here for you. You guys can chat with them, and then we'll just take a few questions here.
All right, we'll open it up over here to the right. Don Taberi, WBNS.
Coach, I know you've been asked a lot about the quarterback situation. You had hoped to have a starter name coming out of spring ball. That didn't happen. Do you have in your mind when you want to have someone named, and do you see a scenario where two guys might play?
You just never know how it's all going to shake. We've had this situation before. We kind of mentioned this last week a little bit where, we had with going back with CJ, going back with Justin, Dwayne, where after the first couple weeks of fall practice, we felt like somebody emerged, and then we went with the starter. But that evaluation continued into the season. Remember that first year with CJ? It was into the third game, he kind of had that shoulder issue, and then Kyle played in that game, and then CJ went back in. So you just never know how things are going to go. But in an ideal world, you'd love to have somebody emerge after the first week or two, and we usually have that scrimmage on that second week on that Saturday, and usually have a pretty good feel. I remember when I was playing college football, and we had a competition between me and somebody who was a couple years ahead of me, and it went all the way down to that last scrimmage, and then it kind of went into those first few games, and I was named the starter, and then continued to be the starter. But so every situation's different, but again, if you're asking for an ideal situation, you'd love, again, for somebody to merge here the first couple weeks, and then they're taking the majority of the reps with the ones as you head into the game week.
Right behind him, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Little departure here, but there seems to be this drumbeat about expansion. Can you tell us what you know or hear about the Big Ten possibly adding teams in the not-too-distant future?
I don't know. You may know more than me. You hear different things going on out there, and certainly I know the Big Ten, wants to position themselves well in the future. By adding USC and UCLA, it's become a national, coast-to-coast conference, and I know that, we want to make sure that, we're, in the next decade or 2 decades down the road, we're in the best position to be the best conference in America. That's all I know. And I know there's rumors out there, but that's all.
I think there will just be 1, 2, or 3 or maybe 2 in the not too distant future.
I mean, you're starting to see conferences become a lot bigger than they ever have. That's for sure. But yeah, it's like tomorrow's the first day of practice and football, and that's kind of where my focus is right now. But you're right. Every year it just changes so much. Sometimes it's hard to grab onto.
Hey, folks, I'm going to ask if just coming off of Media Day last Wednesday, if we could, I'd like to keep it to just one question per, because I've got like 25 people that already want to ask today. So let's go one and done, and if we can squeeze a couple more in at the end, we'll do that. Kellyanne Stitz, WSYX.
You guys added the Northwestern transfer Ohio native, Nigel Glover. What does he add to the program, and is it likely he'll take a red shirt?
Yeah, so I think by NCAA rules, I can't talk about any type of situation like that with NCAA rules. So before I comment on that, I want to make sure that I'm okay. Yeah.
Bill Landis, the podcast.
Ryan, do you remember how many weeks into your first season at UNH that battle carried out before you were named?
I think it was 3 weeks in. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that the last couple of days. I think it went all the way to that last scrimmage, that third week. Yeah.
But then into the season as well, or?
Yeah, and then I got named the starter for the first game, and then it kind of went from there, and never looked back really.
I'm just wondering, like, you because you've gone through it. Not every head coach that has to make a decision like this has actually gone through it as a player. I'm just wondering maybe how that informs your decision-making process as you make the choice.
Yeah, it does. I think that's part of the position just in general of quarterback. There's so many things that come with it, and when you've gone through it, not at this level, but still playing college football and being around the position, there's so much that goes with it, and you don't know until you're actually in a game. I mean, to sit here and say we went into that Minnesota game with CJ saying that he was going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist in 2 years or 1 year for the next 2 years, that wasn't true. After the first half, I was like, I don't know what's but you just kind of figure it out and you keep growing and you keep building. Everybody's different. All those guys are different. I think I'm just thinking about since we've been here with Dwayne was in a couple of situations, the rivalry game, where you kind of knew a little bit what you had going into the season. Justin Fields, a totally different situation. Hadn't played a lot of football, but we knew he had a really high ceiling. These guys are a little bit different. The good thing about both of these guys is they've been in the system for a little while. So, Kyle is into year 3 and Devin into his second year. So that's good. They know the system, but now they have to go play. And, when do you really know? Once you start playing games. But I think that's part of it is playing the position, coaching the position, and just seeing things in practice that you're projecting to say, okay, we think that based on what we're seeing in practice that they're going to do well in the games.
If you don't know until the game starts, can you envision a scenario where you don't make a choice and you play them both the first few weeks?
I mean, I can. Yeah, I mean, somebody has to emerge to be the starter for sure. Yeah, and if you don't know, then you just keep pushing forward. I'd like for somebody to step up and for that to happen, but you just don't know. And shoot, I mean, Joe broke his hand that 1 year. I mean, there's just things happen. You think about the year that the national championship was won here. It took all 3 guys. So the message to that room is going to be that we need to be the best quarterback room in the country. And whoever's playing on the field, the other 3 guys need to support him, and they need to keep pushing each other to be the best room. And right now, that's the focus.
Right behind Bill, Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Brian, at the end of the spring game, you mentioned how much better the secondary had been that spring. They're breaking on balls more. What do you need to see from that group this in fall camp to see that they're taking that next step?
Yeah, it's continued into the summer. Just the competitiveness. A lot of the stuff that Mick's been doing in the off season is all about competition, and whatever it's been, whether it's a shuttle or lifting weights, it's about competition. It's about competing, and it's the same thing with the DBs is competing on the perimeter, making tackles, getting their hands on balls. I mean that's what it comes down to. And if we're competitive, if we're fierce out there, if we're tough, if we're smart, then we'll have a chance. But everything we've seen so far is very encouraging.
Right next door, Rob Aller, Clemens Dispatch.
Ryan, on this whole quarterback decision, how much of this is eyeball test and gut versus analytics and getting into the minutiae of mechanics, and where do you ultimately make that decision?
Yeah, I think it's probably the first part, but we're going to chart everything. We're going to chart one-on-ones. We're going to chart 7-on-7. We're going to chart competitive teamwork. All of that. We're going to chart drives. Turnovers. So that part is kind of the analytics part of it. And then, like you said, there's the eyeball test of just what do you see, when someone walks in the huddle or before a drive or on that 3rd and 3 or in the red zone when the game's on the line. What's that going to look like? Because to me, that's where quarterbacks are at their best. When you have to win the game, they're the most competitive guy on the field. And I think where we got, Dwayne, I think about like all the way to that Maryland game where he had to really go win the game with his feet. You think about the Clemson game with Justin when he took that hit and came back and throw 6 touchdown passes, or just the way that CJ attacked that last game against Georgia. Like, that's what we want. We want the most competitive guy on the field. And it doesn't happen overnight, but that's what we're working towards. And like you said, I can't sit here and tell you like there's a certain statistic or analytic that we can say, yes, this is going to be our guy. And so we'll just keep working towards it.
Tony Urban, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, how does the battle for the scout team quarterbacks shake out, and what could Lincoln give you there?
Yeah, I think he can really help us, especially with some of the quarterbacks we see that are more athletic. It's one thing to go through, a drill with a quarterback that maybe can't disconnect, but when you're reading a defensive end or you're scrambling or those type of things, to have somebody who really can mimic what the other quarterback's going to do, that's really good. It's different. The guys in the back end have to cover a little longer. The guys, have to pursue a little bit more. You got to cage the pocket a little bit. So all those things I think Lincoln can do. Who knows? I'm not going to put a limit on what was going to happen this year, but if it plays out the way we think it might, Lincoln will have a great opportunity to go against our defense and grow and learn. But I'll be surprised if he also doesn't have a chance to get in a game this year and get his feet wet. So we'll see. But yeah, to your point, I think that's going to be a weapon for us.
Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
You talked before about, I guess you were just kind of alluding to this. You said before that it's driving the offense for points as being like the crucial part of this evaluation. But as you're just saying, like with CJ last year, there's maybe a higher standard for doing those sorts of things under duress. Is it just things on a football field that you've been evaluating for a couple of years to make that decision, or are there things you're learning about these guys as people that factors into that? And can you kind of explain what that is?
Yeah, no, a big part of it is who they are as people, what's going on off the field, what's going on in the locker room, because those guys have to believe in the quarterback, and that's a huge part of it. And it starts in the weight room. You guys have heard me talk about that before with Mick, and the guys see the work that's put in. They see the leadership, the ability to stand up in front of a group of guys and project and talk to them and lead them, and those all matter. We put that in front of the group in competitive situations to see who's going to win it, and the team has to believe in the quarterback. And like you said, it's not all on the field, but certainly ultimately that's what it's going to come down to.
Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, just on the other side of the ball, and we'll talk to Jim tomorrow about it too, but the jack position was something you guys shelved in the spring, and now with Mitchell Melton being back, and sort of a lot of guys being at full strength, where does that fit into the picture?
As camp goes on, we'll start to go back into that, personnel grouping and see how it plays out. The number one thing is, we've talked about this, is that you want to put your guys in the best position to be successful. And so if we think that the jack will give us something, we have like 3 or 4 guys that we think would be really good at the jack position. We'll do that. And so he'll kind of talk through that with the defensive staff, and as we get through the first week or two, then we'll start diving into that. But it's certainly a package that brings a lot of confusion to the defense, and it's a little bit different in terms of the fits. So it gives us something, but at the same time, we want to make sure it's the right mix.
Austin Ward, Rivals, dotting the I's.
Ryan, it seemed like most of the injuries and stuff that you were monitoring in spring guys were going to be ready to go by training camp. Are there any that will carry over or limit some guys at all at the start of camp? And if not, how does that change competitions with having Evan back or Jacob James? Like, it's different than spring.
Yeah.
And how long could those last? We keep talking about the quarterback. Those
Right.
are battles too.
Absolutely, yeah. We're at full strength, so it's a big part of the preseason is getting the work you need, getting guys ready, but keeping them healthy and getting ready for that first game. But guys have worked hard to rehab to get to where we are, so we feel good about that. Now we're at full strength. I mean, we're 4 deep now in a lot of areas, and so we'll be able to at times go 2 fields where we can get reps on one field, reps on another, instead of trying to get 4 groups in. That'll allow us to get double the amount of reps in less time. So there's a lot more guys, and that means a lot more competition. And like you said, now where you may have had 1 other guy at your position, now you're going to have 4 at the running back position, 5. So that's always good. It's always good to have competition in there, and that's what this whole offseason is about. Has been about competing. So we'll keep pushing that message forward.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you talked about this a little bit at Big Ten Media Days, kind of paring down the rotation up front on the defensive line. Still rotating, but maybe using your best guys more in big games when the game's on the line. Can you expound on that a little bit, maybe how your conversations with Larry went with that?
Yeah, well, I think we now have guys who have experience going into the season, and I think that they can handle a lot more reps. Now, we still have a long season to play, but it typically comes down to how many guys do you think can play at starter level, and those guys will play. But I think the D-line that we have, these guys can handle more volume than maybe in the past. So, we'll see how the younger guys develop. I mean, it's always good to have more guys who can play in a game that you feel good putting in a game to rotate a little bit. But these guys can handle more, and I think you'll see them in there more.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
When you first got here, you had a goal of turning Ohio State's quarterback room into, you want the expectation to be Heisman Trophy finalists, first-round draft picks, and you're 3 quarterbacks into that. You've done that. Does that all build on the expectation of who comes next and maybe how you go about evaluating quarterbacks, whether it's in the recruiting trail or when you're going through a quarterback battle? Does it all add pressure to who comes next after that?
Yeah, I mean, it's you can say it doesn't, but I think it does. Yeah, the expectations and standards are very high here. But that's at every position. But yeah, I mean, the guys that have come before have done an unbelievable job. So yeah, that is the expectation. We should be, playing for a national championship. We should be, Heisman Trophy finalists and a first-round draft pick. That's been the standard set, and we got to keep building on that. So, but what jumps out is that it just doesn't happen. Just because you're the quarterback at Ohio State doesn't mean that all those things are going to happen. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of production on the field. You got to go put it on the field. It isn't just going to happen, and I think these guys understand that. But yeah, I mean, anytime you're going to be the quarterback at Ohio State, there's a lot of pressure.
Dan Hope, Lebanon Warriors.
Ryan, it seems like you guys have kind of narrowed your pool a little bit in recruiting in terms of who you're focusing on, and maybe getting a little bit more aggressive in terms of bringing guys in through the transfer portal. Has there been a shift in philosophy there at all this year?
It's just now that there's more people in the transfer portal, and it's a lot easier for people to go in and out of the portal. For some of our guys who decided that they wanted to maybe try to go play somewhere else. So there's a lot more movement, and so with that, there's just the more availability, and there's sometimes more holes you have to fill. And so we've just tried to make sure we don't change our philosophy in that we want to find guys who fit Ohio State. You can't just throw guys in here; it's just not going to work. And so I think we found a nice group. They've assimilated well, and hopefully, with the guys we brought in, we've done pretty well with, and hopefully we can continue to do that. But there's a lot of pride in that locker room. So bringing somebody in, you have to be careful about that. So.
Andy Anders, Buckeye Sports Bulletin.
Yes, obviously the evaluation with Brian Hartline and calling plays is still ongoing, but looking back on your first year's calling plays at Temple at Boston College, what things were important in those summers and falls to get you ready to embrace that role effectively?
Yeah, I've said it before. I think probably the easiest part of being a coordinator is calling the plays. If you are listing that's pretty low. It's really about the day-to-day organization. It's about deciding what plays you're going to install. It's about organizing your staff to make sure that they install it properly. It's about organizing practice to make sure that every moment on that field is being done the way that you want it. Then watching the film and making the corrections. Identifying, where, your best players are. And then when you get into a game, so training guys to be ready to put in, to run the offense, the situations, there's just so many things that come up that you have to get prepared for. Then there's the game planning, making sure that, you have the right plays in, making sure that you've installed it the right way, that you've practiced it the right amount of times, the right looks. Sometimes I made a mistake, plenty of times going into a game where you're practicing the defenses maybe you didn't see. You didn't prepare the guys properly. So I could go on for hours about all the things that come with being an offensive coordinator. The calling the plays, once that's done and it's on the board, I mean, you have a sheet of paper, and if it's on the sheet, it's good enough to call. Now, there is an art to it, and there's adjustments in game that have to be made. But it's all the other things that come with being a coordinator. And so I was fortunate enough to have really good guys around me that helped me with that. And, Brian's doing a really good job for the first time, in the first few months of doing that. And now this is his first preseason going through it. And the more he can do of that, then certainly allows me more opportunity to move around the program and do more.
Second row left, Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach. Secondary, has gotten a lot of attention, and you added a couple transfers there. I know that Carter was injured a little bit in the spring, but is the hope that you have that kind of competition at all 5 of those spots going in, and what you're feeling about what that'll look like.
Yeah, I think the corner position will be very competitive, but Denzel Burke has had a great offseason, so we're expecting him to have some of his best football this fall. Jordan Hancock's had a great offseason, but Davison and Lorenzo and Calvin and Jermaine and Jair, I mean, they, again, a lot of depth there, so very competitive. But then also at the 3 safety positions as well. So Lathan is the incumbent there at what we call the Bandit, and but Jair and Proc and Malik Harford's had a great offseason. You're going to see a bunch of guys in there, and then it'll be interesting to see how the nickel position competition gets sorted out as we get into that first game. Tanner did a lot of that for us last year, and that's an important position for us.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Eventually, you will name a starting quarterback, but how close do you think you are right now, and how close do you need to be to have either one of those guys be somebody that you're comfortable with? I mean, only one's going to start,
sure.
But how important is it that both are ready?
No, I think it's a great question because, I remember a couple of years back when we had a pretty loaded wide receiver or a quarterback room. I think we had Jack and we had CJ and I think we had Quinn and Devin came in. It was a busy room. And I remember someone said, "Boy, you got a really hard decision. It's going to be really hard on you." And what's hard is when you don't have quarterbacks who can play. What's easy is when you have guys who can play. You just got to figure out who the best one is. And I kind of feel like that's the way it is right now. But to say that they're ready to play right now, I don't know. I mean, we got to jump into this practice and figure out where we are in the first couple weeks. But I mean, I have a feeling that both guys are going to be starter level right away. I don't know. Halfway through the season, I don't know. I don't know how the journey is going to go. But you're right. I mean, it's a good problem to have if you have a couple guys that you feel like you can put into a game and can go play. But we're not there right now, and you just don't know how it's going to shake.
Doug Maurice, the podcast.
This is a logistical pre-question. Early in camp, will Devin and Kyle split the reps with the ones as you continue to figure this out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw someone say that one of the most important relationships in the building is between the play caller and the quarterback. As Brian works into this and however this transition goes, what do you want your relationship with the starting quarterback especially to be potentially in a world where maybe you aren't calling the plays on Saturday? How much do you want to stay connected or need to stay connected to that starting quarterback?
Yeah, I think it's critical that I stay connected in all of that because I think you're exactly right. However we end up calling the plays or not, what matters is what the quarterback knows and how it's all tied in together. And so if we're all talking the same language and, when we game plan, if the quarterbacks understand exactly why something's being called and all those things, and that's why, I have to be in those meetings and will be in those meetings, throughout the whole season. That's to your point, to me, the most important thing because when you call a play, the quarterback should know exactly why are you calling the play. We're calling it to take a shot. We're calling it to get a completion. We're calling it because we're expecting, whatever. And that takes a lot of work in the meeting room. That takes a lot of preparation. And so that's a part that I will be involved with.
Just a clarifying follow-up that's tied to the first question. As you and I don't know if we talk about this sometimes. It's like, hey, you're either going to be the play caller or Brian's going to be the play caller, and that's it. It's one or the other. Is this going to be like an emerging your involvement, especially during the week, right? May lessen, may increase. It's not. Is it maybe not like a clean break? You make a decision one way or the other, but you are trying to figure this out during the course of the season. How much week to week you are directly involved with the offense or not?
Yeah. It's not going to be a clean break for sure. That's just not going to happen that way. But as things go along and the more comfortable I think we all feel, then we go from there. But we did that a little bit with Kevin. My first couple years here, we kind of both were very much involved with it. So as long as everyone's communicating, everybody's on the same page. Because there's certain lessons you have to learn as you come up and do it. I went through it as a coordinator. I've done it as a head coach. And And so you try to share your experiences. I'll try to share my experiences with Brian on a daily basis, and Justin Fry. Both of those guys are very, very good. Joe Philbin has an unbelievable, background of calling plays and organizing offenses, so he really can help as well. And usually you're just trying to give them, what you've learned, the scars that have come up over the years, and so over the season it'll continue to evolve, and how much and how fast is still yet to be seen.
We got time for one last question. Tim May, Letterman Row.
Okay, this will be a compound question.
You guys are beautiful.
At the end of the last century, you were competing, like you said, for a starting job at New Hampshire. What were the thoughts that got you through that camp, and how many of those thoughts were also had butterflies in them? Then as the season progressed, I think at one point you had thrown 8 touchdown passes, but 10 interceptions or something like that.
Yeah.
And they stuck with you. You understand what I'm saying there?
1000%.
In other words, once they made their decision, they stuck with you. So, I know that's like a convoluted
No, I know what you're
question, but
asking.
How important it is that
Yeah.
once you get to that point, what gets you to that point, and then the confidence the coaches show in you when you are going to have ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately you just have to go compete, and I think I got myself a little bit jammed up early on with a little bit of trying to be perfect, and then what ended up happening is you start making interceptions because you're worried about being perfect instead of just going compete and playing, and how it all shakes out. You got to prepare the best you can and compete as hard as you possibly can, and then the more you play, the more confidence you get. And so, but that's part of coaching too, is the coaches bringing them along and building up their confidence that, hey man, you can do this, because there is self-doubt that comes in every now and again. You have to fight that.
And there came that point. We saw it with Justin. We saw it with CJ. I watched the highlights of the 1999 New Hampshire team the other day. It got that way with you, where you all of a sudden you were out there balling, as the old saying goes, right? I mean, when did that kind of evolve, and how important is it to get this guy to that point?
Yeah, well, once you have a couple games under your belt and you start to play and you start to believe in it, and especially when you can get the rhythm of the game. If you haven't played a lot, getting a couple completions early. Like I remember that first game at Minnesota, the first call, we tried to get into. Spent a lot of time on that first play for CJ. It was an unbalanced. We moved the guy over just to throw a hitch, and he completed it. Like, okay, we got that under his belt, because all the thoughts that go through your head as a quarterback, and then once you find the rhythm of the game, your instincts just take over when you can stop thinking about things. And I think that's where the experienced quarterbacks, they know what to expect, and they just kind of find the rhythm of the game and they throw and catch. Early on, you can kind of talk to yourself a little bit and spin yourself into a tizzy, and so but that's part of the coaching. That's part of bringing along a young quarterback, which I think there's an art to it. I think there's a part of that you have to really consider when you're bringing somebody along. How are you doing that? You can't just throw them out there and expect them to, like that's why I felt I think I've said this before. Coming out of the Oregon game, we put too much on CJ. That was too much for him. We should have played better defense and run the ball. We didn't. He threw for over 400 yards. That wasn't CJ's fault. But he's getting a hard time, after the game on social media and everything. That was not CJ's fault. That was our fault. And that was a mistake, and you learn from those type of things. But I think that's all part of bringing along a young quarterback.
Coach, thank you very much.
Yep, you got it, guys. Thanks. Yep.
All right, folks, we have Kyle McCord here. We're going to open up Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row. 4th row right there, Kyle.
Yep. What's one thing that you learned in this process maybe you didn't expect to learn going into this quarterback competition?
I think the biggest thing is just controlling the things that you can control, taking it one day at a time and focusing on getting better, those little steps. I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the big picture and, you don't make any progress doing it. I think the most important thing is, focus on it every day and, making the steps to become the best player you can possibly be.
We will go Ari Wasserman, 2nd row right, The Athletic.
Kyle, when you're in a program for multiple years, just in a world where people are leaving when they don't win jobs and going to new places, what do you think the continuity does for a quarterback battle, and how more comfortable do you feel in a system, being familiar with everything and the way that Ryan has done things here?
Yeah, I think his track record obviously speaks for itself, I think, you look at the guys that have stuck around at this program. I mean, they all go on to do really good things. And so, even though, it didn't happen exactly right away for me, I knew that, it was a marathon, and that, if I stuck around and, trusted the process and kept getting better, and that, I put myself in a good position.
We will go fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan was just talking to us about his first year as a starting quarterback and trying to do too much early on. He threw interceptions when he shouldn't. You've obviously started a game, you've played a decent amount, but how do you kind of approach, if you're the guy week one, not trying to overdo things and just kind of play the game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just doing your job is the most important thing. With the team, around us here, the O-line, the receivers, the running backs, tight ends, they're going to make plays for you. And then, just sticking, I think, to, the routine plays, and then, when the opportunities present itself to go out and make a big throw or make a big play, that's when I think, you let your talent on display. But, that'll come. I think just getting in the flow of the game is important, and getting the ball to the playmakers and letting them go to work.
Kyle, deep right field, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Kyle, you obviously had good receivers to throw to in the spring, but having Marvin back in full capacity means not always practicing in the spring, Julian and Mecca being back, and all of your running backs being there. Does it feel a little more comfortable? Will it feel a little more comfortable in fall camp than it did in spring to have all of your weapons back?
Yeah, I think spring was good for those younger guys, getting first team reps, and then I think, like you said, getting Marv, Mech, and Julian all back healthy. I think those three are without a doubt the best receiving core in the nation. So that's obviously going to help. But I think just kind of having the chemistry from the spring with those younger guys is going to be good. And then obviously been throwing to those guys for 3 years now. So I think it kind of all worked out in a good way.
Third row right, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
When you look back at the spring game going into this summer, what did you see on tape that you liked that you did, and what did you see on tape that you were like, okay, this is something I need to fix or improve on?
Yeah, I think definitely made some plays, definitely wanted some reads back, but that's part of the growing process. And then I think this offseason that really gave me a good understanding of where I needed to work and things I needed to get take a step in. And I think I really worked this offseason with purpose, with intention, and I think that was really good for me. I think I grew a lot from that.
Timing thing, spring, or just kind of getting the hold of the system, something specifically?
Yeah, I think just a little bit of everything. I think there was a lot of good to take away, and then definitely some things you wanted to clean up. And so just watching that film, not only from the spring game, but just from spring practices, I think there's definitely, like I said, some good and some bad. But just taking the things that you want to improve on and really honing in on them, and not shying away from them, and just trying to make every weakness a strength, I think was really kind of the mindset this offseason.
Right next door, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
So there's two parts to this quarterback thing, right? There's the mechanics, analytics, what you're doing on tape, where your hand is, where your hands are, and then there's the relational side, like leadership and command of the huddle. How do you go back and forth between those two? Is it thrown into the same soup, or do you have to compartmentalize? Now I'm going to work on this, now I'm going to work on this.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think being intentional is important. I think there's a time to work on mechanics, obviously, like going out there in the field and watching film of yourself and being your own hardest critic. I think that's important. And then I think also, like you said, being a leader, I think that comes in situations with the team, and just kind of taking that next step. So I think like I said, I think being intentional is the biggest thing, and when those moments present themselves, making sure that you maximize them. I think both have kind of come, I want to say, kind of naturally. I think, when CJ was here, you don't want to step on his toes. Obviously, it's his team. But obviously, with him being gone, I think, you kind of naturally step up into that role, being a little bit more of a vocal leader and, letting your voice be heard. And then with the mechanics, I think that's always something that, I've been, big on. And, sometimes when you get in the flow of the season and, in spring ball, and there's a lot going on, you don't necessarily always have the time to, hone in. And so I think that off season, that we just went through was good, just having a few months to really, take a step back and dive into that was good.
Front row right, Austin Ward, rivals, dotting the I's.
Kyle, I know that the pressure you put on yourself is more than anyone else, the expectations you have. When the conversation with Coach Day or the fan base or anybody else is that the quarterback has to be a first-round pick, win the Heisman, win a national championship, is there ever any moments that is overwhelming to think about?
Yeah, I think, no one will ever put, higher expectations or, a higher standard on, myself than I will, and I always think that, you have to go out there and play with a lot of confidence, obviously. You have to go out there and, I think, really just hone in on every play. And, you look at the guys before, like I've been watching, film of like 2018, watching Dwayne, then watching, JT in years before, and Justin and CJ. I think, they've all, set a good precedent, but they've all done it their own way. So I think, just kind of realizing like there's, a lot of different ways this can be done. But, like I said, I don't think, anyone's ever put, an expectation on myself that I didn't expect for myself.
Far left, rather. Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Kyle, being the older guy in this competition, do you go into this competition feeling like this is my job to go win?
I think not even, focusing on the competition. I think, I feel, the best I have felt going into a camp before. Obviously I've had, the most experience I've had going into a camp. And, I think now more so than ever, I'm just, focusing on myself, and I know I'll be in a good position if, I put the best, version of myself out there.
Right behind him, Jeff Jefferson, Press Pros.
Coach Hartline, and you're just, how do you feel he's working into his new role, and what kind of relationship do you have with him?
Yeah, Coach Hartline did a great job this spring, for calling plays for the first time. I was really, pleasantly surprised with the way he saw the field. I think, just all his experience from coaching and playing showed. And, I think he kind of sees the field like a quarterback. And so, he did a great job with the pass concepts, the run concepts, all that. And, just getting on the same page with him is key. But, I think, just his years of, being around the game have really, kind of spotlighted themselves.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You've mentioned the word intentional a couple times. What does that mean to you? Can you kind of elaborate on what that means?
Yeah, I think, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in, having, so much you want to work on, whether it's, mechanics or, whatever the case may be. But I think, having a plan before you go into a workout or a throwing session, like whatever it is, just, being very conscious of what you're trying to accomplish, I think is important.
Right behind him, Max Olson, the athletic.
Hey, Kyle, when you think back to your first fall camp here as a freshman, you're competing with CJ, they bring in Quinn. Kind of where was your confidence level then, and where is it now?
Yeah, I think, you don't know what you don't know. Going to that first fall camp, I didn't know what the schedule was going to look like. I didn't know what the practices were going to look like and all that. And, having 2 fall camps under my belt and, going into year 3, I think, you have a good understanding of what to expect. And, you know what it takes to, get the job done. So I think, just having that experience is very helpful, going into that third one.
Front row right, Tim May, Letterman row.
You got Coach Dennis, you got Coach Fitch, you got Brian Hartline, you got Ryan Day. Who are you listening to the most?
I think all of them have, a lot of good insight, and the good thing about all of them is they kind of, preach the same things. And, obviously all those guys have a different way of getting it across. So I think, just all of them really, they all know what they're talking about. They've all had, a lot of years of experience in the game. And, you look at all their track records, it speaks for itself. So, really you can't go wrong with who you're listening to and who you're getting advice from.
And real quickie, considering your head coach was in this position many years ago, fighting for a starting job, but also then played and stuff, how much do you just lean on him to a certain extent, Kyle, to kind of understand what's important. You know?
Yeah, I think it's always helpful having a coach that's played the position. There's definitely something to be said for a guy that stood back there and taking snaps and played quarterback. And obviously, I think you look at what he's done. It's no secret that he's the best, I think, in college football at developing guys. So anytime he gives you a piece of advice, you gotta take it and really apply it.
Right behind him, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
What's the most important football thing that you accomplished this summer?
Oh man, I think honestly, just being able to get up in the team and just be a vocal leader. I think that's really important with the quarterback. I think you watch those best guys like Brady, Burrow, and Rodgers. I think the one thing they obviously all have different styles of play, but they're all very vocal guys. And I think that was kind of the next step in my leadership process, is being heard. And I think this offseason I did a good job of getting up and talking in front of the team.
Deep center field, Jeremy Birmingham, dotting the I's, rivals.
I've known you a couple of years, and that is not really in your personality sometimes to be that loud guy, that vocal guy.
Yeah.
During spring ball, you were very demonstrative in practice. We saw you throwing a football up and hitting the ceiling in the Woody after a touchdown. Is that intentional, or is that just coming out of you naturally now because you're being put in this position potentially to lead?
Yeah, I think that is just kind of the joy and the competitive nature when it comes to playing this game. I mean, it's played and coached by, the most competitive people on the planet. And so, like you said, just having that energy and, having that joy of playing football, I think that's where that kind of comes from. And, it's been natural, I think, like I said, when, CJ was here, it was obviously his team, but now that he's gone, just being able to kind of step into that new leadership role, being more vocal, and just kind of letting my true colors show. I think that's kind of where that comes from.
Got time for just a couple more. Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You mentioned a couple of times that you didn't really want to step on CJ's toes when it was his team, and so maybe you kind of backed off a little bit and let him have his moment. So are there just things about you and your personality and your leadership that the team hasn't had an opportunity to see because you were showing respect to the guy who was in front of you?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is just being able to get up and speak in front of the team. I think sometimes when there's too many guys trying to say something, the message can kind of get muffled a little bit. But now that he's gone and you kind of feel comfortable getting up and talking in front of the guys, I think that's kind of been that next step in that leadership role and that aspect of being heard and felt.
Front row right, Joey Kaufman, Plymouth Dispatch.
Kyle, as far as your working out over the summer, obviously you guys are not with coaches as much as far as strength and conditioning, outside of that kind of strength and conditioning stuff. What were some of the things that you did from camps or coaches or private coaches, or sort of what was your summer like kind of overall from all that stuff?
Yeah, so obviously, Coach Mick, got us right with the running and lifting, so getting bigger, stronger, and faster with him. And then, working with my quarterback coach from back home on just, mechanics and, all the little details of, the actual playing of quarterback. We kind of honed in this offseason, got some really good throwing sessions in. He came out here, I went back home. So just kind of, like I said, being intentional, if I'm in the weight room, being, very intentional with my lifts, and really focusing on, each individual lift and what I'm trying to get done, whether it's, the running, being very intentional with that, and then obviously going out there in the field and honing in on my mechanics. So those kind of three areas, and then, watching film and just trying to expand in all those areas.
Right behind him, Doug Maurice, the podcast.
Kyle, with where you are right now as a quarterback, what is your balance between making plays, wanting to take big shots, be a playmaker, versus making sure you don't turn the ball over or make mistakes? How do you see that balance right now?
Yeah, I think getting on the same page with, who's calling the plays, and, with each play call, what the coach is looking for. And so I think that was one thing that Coach Hartline did a great job of in the spring, is, kind of let what he was looking for in each play, why he's calling a play, and understanding the reason behind it. You know, and there will be times to make plays. I mean, obviously, you know, with the weapons that we have here, and you know, you go back and watch our film, like, you know, we're going to take our shots, we're going to, you know, throw the ball down the field, and the opportunities are going to be there. But it is when, you know, they present themselves, you know, you can't force anything. And, you know, if a team wants to play, you know, the safety's deep and not let you take anything, you know, you got to understand that and work the underneath zones. And then, you know, if they start getting aggressive and, you know, trying to take that away, that's when, you know, the shots are there. And so I think, you know, just understanding the reason behind the play calls is important. And, you know, I think that was one thing that, you know, both Coach Day and Coach Hartline did a great job of.
Where do you think you are as a quarterback in broken plays once something breaks down? Maybe you have to escape the pocket. Where are you? Are you good at that? Do you want to get better at that?
Yeah, I feel like I am good at that. And, you know, I feel like, you know, you can stand up here and, you know, I can say whatever, but at the end of the day, I think the film will speak for itself.
And final question, second row right, Bill Landis, the podcast.
Kyle, I know that you and Devin are really close. I'm not trying to paint this as anything other than that. But when you're competing with someone for a job, I'm sure you have some feel of your strengths and weaknesses compared to your competitor's strengths and weaknesses. When that's the case, do you try to accentuate the things that you think maybe you're a little behind in, or do you focus more on your strengths to try to elevate those and create separation that way, or do you just not think about it?
Yeah, I don't think that's really something that, you know, crosses your mind. Obviously, when, you know, you're out there on the field, you're going to be competing with, you know, the defense, whoever you're going against. And so I think, you know, Devin will say this too. I think, you know, we definitely pushed each other in the spring, which was good. I think, you know, he brought the best out of me. I brought the best out of him. And I think it's been a really healthy competition with each other. And so, you know, when you go out there in the field, I think, you know, you're just focused on one thing and it's doing your job to, you know, the best of your abilities.
Great. Kyle, thank you very
Cool.
much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kyle. All right, Devin, we are going to lead off your questions over here to the right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Devin, do you think you and Kyle are just different versions of the same player, or is there a clear, I do this better, he does, I mean, you know what I'm asking here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can get kind of what you're saying. I mean, everybody has different skill sets. You know, not everybody's the same quarterback. I would say I'm a little bit more athletic than Kyle, but, I mean, at the end of the day, we both got strong arms. We both can make plays, and he's going to be able to make plays with his legs too. So just is what it is.
Second row right, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
I asked him this question too. What's the most important football thing you accomplished this summer?
Probably just leadership, honestly. You know, when I hurt my finger, I wasn't able to do anything. You know, I wasn't able to do much of the lifts, but to be able to be in that locker room and in that weight room and just being able to vocalize myself and get guys going and push guys and really show guys that I'm here to do this thing.
Front row right, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Yeah, I was wondering, Devin, has Coach Gebbia helped you at all since spring and stuff? I mean, he aspires to be in that, you know, that room on the other side eventually. What have you gotten from him? What have you and Kyle gotten from him over the last couple of months?
Tristan's been an extremely incredible resource for us. I mean, he's done it for 7 years in college, and so, you know, he's had ups and downs through his career, and he's had moments that a lot of us won't be able to you know, go through, and he's had moments that he wishes he wouldn't have been able to go through, but he's had them, and he's able to have learned from them and give us lessons on them. And we've been able to meet with him every day. I mean, I know I have this offseason. I've just grabbed Tristan every day and gone into the quarterback room and just watched tape. I mean, we've even watched tape of him at Oregon State. Doesn't matter what we're watching. I mean, he's just always given insight to, you know, different things that he did and different ways he performed. And, you know, he's given us a lot of tips that have been really helpful to me.
And real quick, do you go into this feeling like in a golf tournament, it's the last round, but maybe you're trailing, but you have a shot? I mean, what is your thought going into this? Do you feel like you're even Steven coming out of the gate?
It's none of that's even crossing my mind. You know, I'm just trying to go out there and help this team win, you know, whoever it is. We're just trying to be the best versions of ourselves every day, and we're not worried about, you know, at the end of a practice, we're not going to be like, oh, he did better than me this day or that. It's how did I perform? You know, what did I get better today? What was I really working at today to get better? And if I get myself better every day, that's going to be a really good, you know, few months that I build up.
Deep center field, Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast Rivals.
Devin, with this summer going the way it did, with you not being able to throw much, you know, how did you handle that from a mental standpoint, number one, but when did you get back to the point where you were able to throw the ball normally and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got back, I mean, obviously I came back a little bit early from my injury, whatever it was, a week or something like that. So it was a little different throwing the ball. Just even gripping the football was a little awkward at first, but I mean, that went away after, a week of throwing. I mean, I was pushing it back home, like even while I still wasn't totally cleared, just trying to get back to it because obviously, I'm going to want to, keep my edge and try to keep going. But it really wasn't different for me. I had the whole summer to keep throwing. We've had OTAs. I didn't miss anything. I mean, maybe a couple things in the lifts that I wasn't able to do, but then I'm fully cleared, and I was cleared maybe 2 weeks into the summer, so I was good to do everything and don't feel like I lost anything. That's all right. I'll jump higher than him today.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Devin, Coach Day was talking about when he first was named starting quarterback, he tried to make plays, and that turned into interceptions. Kyle's been out there a bit more than you have. He started a game, so he's gone through some of this already. How do you kind of mentally prepare yourself for if you are out there week one, just playing the game and not letting it become too big and trying to do too much?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the biggest thing is not making it too big of a deal and trying to force things or I need to make this kind of play or something like that. It's just, doing my assignment and making each play like it's just an assignment and I just got to hand the ball off right this player. I got to make the right read. I mean, nothing's got to be, too extreme. We got to keep everything very level.
3 seats over to the left, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Yeah, you mentioned during the time you weren't being able to play, you stepped up as a leader. Have you always been someone that's led, and how those workouts in the summer with Mick helped you kind of tap into that?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Mick has been able to give me that voice as well, working with him every day and, getting me around, lifting with the right guys and being able to vocalize myself to guys like Marv and Cade Stover and, our linemen and stuff has been really helpful to me. I feel like I've always had that, those leadership qualities, but coming in as a freshman behind C.J. Stroud, it's like, what are you going to vocalize as? I haven't done anything on the field or anything. Even still, I haven't done anything on the field, but, they've seen me in spring, they've seen me vocalize myself, and I think they trust me.
Third row right, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
You and Kyle both talk a lot about leadership, and you just mentioned when CJ's there, Kyle mentioned it, CJ's there, you can take a step back, it's his team. Usually there's one quarterback, it's their team, their voice. How did you balance all offseason trying to grow your voice with the team while Kyle's trying to do the same thing? You know what I'm saying? Like the team has like 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be, different feelings from each of us, but at the end of the day, everybody's worried about who's going to win and who's going to win this game. So nobody really cares, what one guy's doing right now and what the other guy's doing. They just want somebody to vocalize themselves and, keep pushing our team because that's all we're worried about is winning games. And nobody cares who's going to be playing. We just want people to win games. We want to get each other better, and we want this team to get better. So that's what we're just going to keep doing.
Third row left, Dan Hope, Lebanon Warriors.
Devin, your spring being cut short, do you feel like you were able to show everything you needed to show in the spring to give yourself a chance this summer?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously I didn't get to play in the spring game, but at the end of the day, it wasn't too big of a deal. We keep everything vanilla and we don't really do much in the spring game, but I would have really liked to play in it. Obviously I'm very competitive and I would have wanted to do that, but I felt like from the time that we started the spring and the time that I ended, I felt like I grew, a ton, and I was able to, again, vocalize myself and be a leader to these guys. I felt like my play just improved, my decision-making improved, and, if you improve throughout a spring, I think it's a very good spring.
Front row right, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Devin, what was that rehab process like? What are the things you're doing when you're recovering from the finger?
Just with Sean and Stu and Solo and Tyler and all those guys in the training room, just with them every day, just trying to get everything right. Just getting all my movement back and everything. At first it was mostly just healing and letting it do nothing. But then as soon as I had all my movement back, it was just, getting everything going again and make sure my finger's not stiff or anything and being able to throw football again. That was the end goal.
Do you remember like the first time back or you threw the football and it looked like it normally does for you?
I think it was like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks after the surgery that they even allowed me to grip a football. But obviously, I was going to try to push the chips in and try to keep going. But I remember when I first threw after I think it was 4 weeks that I actually threw it came off a little weird and I was like, that didn't feel right at all. But it just was, I hadn't done it now. That was the longest time I hadn't thrown a football. So it was just awkward at first, but then it's good.
Deep right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Devin, this summer, with all the workouts that you did, all the things that you went through with your rehab and everything, do you feel like you're a much better player for having gone through all of that?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, like I said, with having Tristan around me, he's went through some crazy injuries. I mean, he was out for 2 years. He was bedridden for 2 years, couldn't move. So he's had those challenges of taking something that he really loved away from him. So, I mean, just being able to sit with him and realize what he did and what worked for him, what didn't work for him, and being able to learn from what happened to him, it really helped me push my, process along faster and just get back to going. And I feel like I grew a lot better than I would have if Tristan wasn't here because of that.
Front row right, Austin Ward, rivals dotting the i's.
Devin, when you talk about that growth, I know that the answer to this is going to be both, but if you could only pick one, do you feel like you've made more progress physically or mentally over the last year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be both. I mean, I put some weight on and stuff like that, been getting right with Coach Mick, but I think mentally it's probably been the biggest thing. Sitting with Coach Fitch and Coach Dennis and Tristan in there, I mean, just my preparation has changed and what I see in film and what I'm really trying to look at. I'm not, sitting in there just going and watching plays. I've really learned from those guys and figured out what I really needed to sit down and learn from those meetings and taking different things out of meetings every day. So I feel like my mental side of the game has changed completely.
Right behind him, Bill Landis, the podcast.
Devin, you're expressing a lot of confidence right now that the time you had to miss is not any kind of setback for you. But when it first happened, did you approach it that way, or was there any part of you that was like, "Well, that's it, I'm hurt"?
No, I mean, it was funny. When I first got hurt, I called my dad. We're sitting in the hospital. I called my dad, and I told him I broke my finger and I'm going to need surgeries. And his first reaction was, "Why aren't you upset?" And I was like, at the end of the day, I'm going to miss, 1 week. I mean, I'm going to grow from this, and this isn't going to be anything to, to sit my hat on or anything like that. I'm going to be right back out there. This wasn't a step in the road at all for me. I mean, if anything, it was a step up, and that was my mindset through the whole thing, is this is going to really help me.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Devin, you clearly have an naturally outgoing personality. Kyle seems to be more on the quieter side, at least, what we've seen. How would you kind of contrast and compare your personalities? And do you think that your personality can really help you in terms of the competition, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, when you're more outgoing and stuff like that, I mean, I feel like guys can, gel around you and form around you just because if you're more vocal and stuff like that. But Kyle's very vocal. Kyle's a great leader. Guys trust Kyle, and he's been, good in all those steps as well. So, I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything crazy out of those two things.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You're talking about how you don't feel like the finger thing was that big a step back because you only missed a week. You also didn't throw a pass last year, and you're in a competition with a guy who's at least started a game, even if it was 2 years ago. But you also seem like a pretty competitive guy. Why don't you see these things as a disadvantage, or why you can win this battle?
You're saying in terms of not being able to play in a game yet?
Yeah.
I mean, we do it every day in practice. We're going against the ones every day in practice, And when we're lining up for a scrimmage and we've got the best D-line in the country coming at us, it's a lot different than, getting some throws against, a lesser team or something like that. And when it's their third guys in the game too, it's like, am I really getting that much out of it of throwing a pass in a game? I mean, I'd much rather go out against, our DBs, our guys like Denzel and David Sadame-Ganosa and all these guys with our guys like Marvin and stuff. And being able to go like that in practice, I think it's way better than, having a couple reps in a game.
Other things that you've maybe done over the past year that make up for the fact that you haven't necessarily gotten to throw a pass in a game yet?
I mean, yeah, like I said, just these practices throughout the year, especially, when the week of Georgia when CJ was up in New York, we were able to, that was the first time where I really took the reps with the ones, and I felt good. I felt like I was playing my best football, that I had throughout the season, and I feel like every time I'm going against the best competition, I feel like that's when I'm at my best. And so, I've been able to do that every day of the spring and every day of the summer with Kyle. So it's just a constant continuation of getting better.
Well, last question, Jeff Jeffries, Press Pros, far left.
Yeah, Coach has talked a lot about competition this year, making everything a competition. What's that been like, and how has that impacted you guys in your competition for being a quarterback?
I mean, every day has been the same for us. We're trying to get each other better. We're trying to see who's really going to help this team win. That's all we're worried about. We're worried about getting our guys better. Who's going to get out there and beat Indiana week 1? That's all we're worried about. We're just trying to get this team better. I mean, we have all the right tools, and we know that, and so all we're worried about is how we can help each other.
Devin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Devin. Folks, we get to say hello to Tristan Gebbia. Here, right
How's it
now.
going, everybody?
Open the floor for questions for Tristan. Second row right there, Tristan. Nathan Baird, Cleveland.
You talked in the past, obviously, about this season being sort of a transition for you and your career to what you want, the bigger goal. So, do you take some ownership this year of the starting quarterback performance, do you feel like that reflects on what this season's going to be for you?
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting question for sure, but I think that we'll all, I mean, every quarterback room I've been in over my years, you know, you're always trying to either make yourself as good as you can or whoever's playing. So to me, it's always been like that. Like, you want to have, in a team environment, you want to have the most successful team possible, and you know, playing quarterback's a good part of that. And so, yeah, I think so. Just try to help in any way that I can, no matter what that role is, because I mean, who knows what's going to happen, right?
Over here to the far right, Kellyanne Stitz, WSYX.
Tristan, Devin mentioned leaning on you during his thumb injury. How would you describe your relationship with Devin and the other quarterbacks?
Yeah, obviously I'm a little older than some of those guys, and you know, played in some games and you know, all that stuff. Started, and so anytime I can give them any wisdom, I'd like to do that, and I don't want to over push it on them or anything like that, or preach at them or anything like that. But if they have stuff that they want to talk to me about, they know that I'm a resource for them, and hopefully I can help them through that. Like, he was talking about his finger injury, and you know, it's interesting hearing him talk about it. But you know, he was back and throwing really in no time. I mean, it was like a hiccup, really. It wasn't even too bad, but you know, it's his first little bump in the road, and he responded to it really well. You know, talking with Kyle all the time, I think that I mean, all these guys have great qualities. You know, even Lincoln coming in, you know, he's surprised me so far, and you know, I'm fired up for all of them, really. So.
Third row right, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
About Lincoln, what has surprised him, or how have you seen him adapt?
Yeah, I mean, Lincoln's a hard worker. He puts his head down and he just goes to work. I think that he's picked up the system pretty fast. Smart kid, very athletic. Obviously, that's, you know, a big draw to him. And I think that he's just been improving every day, and I think that he does a good job in the weight room, and guys are already starting to respect him. So I'm excited for his future for sure.
Third, right next door, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, you've seen a lot, you've experienced a lot.
Yeah.
We ask coaches this all the time. What is the most important attribute of a quarterback?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that I would say that it's like perseverance and being able to roll with whatever's going towards you, and being able to we talk about kind of steadying the boat. You know, when things are going wrong, being able to be the guy that's going to take hold of the ship and get it back on track to where it's got to go. You're an extension of the coach on the field, so you know, things are going well, you got to be able to deal with that. Things are going bad, you got to be able to deal with that. I mean, it comes with a whole lots of challenges, and being able to do that is, I think, a skill that you develop over time. But you know, these guys, for how young they are, I think they do a great job so far, and so yeah.
Right behind them, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Tristan, you've been here for a while now. Now looking back and having the spring that you had, being thrust into that role in the spring game, what do you want your role to be here at Ohio State, and what is your goal for this season?
Yeah, well, what I want more than anything is to be the correct person for whatever job that they have for me. So if that's starting games, that I'm ready to do that. If that's being, you know, backup, and whatever they have for me, like, you know, we talk about all the time, we want Ohio State to be the star, not us, right? So whatever role that they have for me, let's go do it.
Second row middle, Max Olson, The Athletic.
Tristan, Devin said you were bedridden for 2 years. Would you dispute that characterization?
Yeah, I think he got a little carried away with that one. Yeah, I mean, I was laid up for like a month and a half or something like that. It was, you know, it was a tough injury for sure. But I'm glad, like, you know, we talked about persevering and being resilient in the face of adversity, and coming back, and eventually getting back on the field, started feeling really good. For the first time, probably late October of last year, and then started to see a little bit of time. And yeah, so I mean, I was proud of myself at that point that I got back on the field at all. And you know, coming up and having an opportunity like this that you can't pass up, I'm super fired up for the future.
When you think back to 2016 and committing to Mike Riley and the Calabrasca movement and all that,
Calabrasca,
and the journey you've been on since,
yeah.
Like, how do you look back on just the way that you know, the twists and turns of your college career?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I learned a lot. I changed a lot, and I grew a lot as a person. You know, I think that there's so many life lessons that I took along the way. But I think at the end of the day, like, God's plan was, which, you know, different than I thought it was going to be coming out of high school, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. We make plans and God laughs, and that's a saying my family says a lot, and I think that that's pretty true, being through it a couple times now. So.
Right in front of him, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Tristan, I know you want to be a coach, so I'm going to ask you kind of a coach's question. Give me from a coach's perspective, your analysis, evaluation of Devin and Kyle.
Yeah, I think that they have a lot of similar traits, and then there's some things that they do a little differently. I think that Devin has a way of extending plays. I think that he does a good job there, and Kyle's been around it a little bit longer, so he's got some good qualities as far as like depth of knowledge in the system. But I think Devin's catching up, and he's been doing a great job in the offseason, meeting and talking ball all the time. And it's really impressive, honestly, the amount of knowledge that they both have. And I think that's a good tip of the cap to Coach Day and Coach Hartline and Coach Fitch and Coach Dennis, who have been working with these guys for a long time. And they're not like you would think that they played a lot of games. Let's put it that way, because they're both very sharp.
You've been around a long time. Could either of them start in most places you've seen already?
Yeah, I think that obviously they were very highly touted recruits. They're competing to play at one of the blue chip programs in the country. I mean, you're an analyst. I'm sure that you would feel the same way. And I think that I think that they're very talented players for sure.
Front row right, Tim May, Letterman row.
I'm just still visualizing Bill as an analyst. Sorry, man. You remember meeting Devin, right? And when you were a counselor at a camp and stuff. It's stunning how much he has grown. I mean, what you remember your first impressions? Do you always have those in your head a little bit, right?
It's kind of interesting because he was like, I mean, it's gonna embarrass me to say this, but like he's one of the kids at the camp that I was working with. Not just literally like a month ago, it's like that's how much younger he was than me. Geez. But yeah, and so I don't maybe remember like the first interaction, but I actually remember meeting him after my first start in Autzen, and he had just got offered by Wisconsin or something like that. And I remember watching him throw, and I was like, yeah, it figures. The kid can play, throw, and he had a good frame and all that stuff, and so that I remembered, and I remembered he was a good kid, and so it doesn't surprise me that he's at a place like this playing at the level he is. So,
hey, real quick, could you summarize your odyssey from Calabasas to Lincoln to was it Corvallis?
Yeah.
To Columbus? I mean, what has been the most interesting stop, or you've got to be about as well-rounded a college student as there's ever been. But what's that been like?
I mean, it's like you said, it's been a lot of stops, been a lot of stuff along the way, but I think that just learning and growing has been the thing that characterizes it more than anything else.
The biggest lesson as a quarterback, for example, what have you learned that carries through all those spots?
Yeah, I think that more than anything, quarterback is really a service position. I think that it's about serving your teammates, serving the program, and putting your teammates in the program before yourself. I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned, and I think that philosophy is what led to me being a captain 3 times at Oregon State, even with my injury, and that's the thing I'm most proud of is that guys were able to look at me even when I was going through some tough times, to be able to lean on. So yeah.
Thanks. Right behind him, Ari Wasserman, The Athletic.
You look at all the stops that you've been in the quarterback rooms that you've been a part of, and then you come here and you kind of see Ryan Day in action. What is it about him and his coaching style, or is there anything that he does that has kind of made it make sense on how he's had 3 first-round picks, and like does that put in perspective for somebody who wants to kind of follow that path too? Yeah,
I've been fortunate. I got to be around Mike Riley when I was a young player, and he obviously had a boatload of experience and knowledge, and that season didn't go so well for us. But and then playing for Jonathan Smith, he's obviously a bright young coach in college football as well, and does a lot of things really awesome. I think that Coach Day is super detail oriented, and I think that even the littlest things will come up in a meeting, and being able to recall that and know that information when you take it onto the field is a big part of the offense. And obviously, he's been a coach here for a while, and it takes a lot to be a coach at a program like this. And so, I mean, I've been very impressed so far, and obviously was impressed watching him on TV, but working with him day in and day out, I think that it's surprising how approachable he is and how much he wants to pour into you, and I really love that. So.
Deep right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
I guess in the same vein, once you're around for 6 years, do you feel like you kind of know just about everything there is to learn about playing quarterback? And then how much more extensive is your knowledge now?
Yeah.
That you've been here for a year to add on to what you did previously?
Yeah, I don't think that you ever stop learning as a quarterback. There's always something new that some D coordinators putting out there, figuring out. I think it's just a constant growth mindset. That's really what's important. What was the second part of the question again? Sorry.
I just was kind of curious, I guess, about that and how after 6 years there might be a certain level of use. Okay, do I need to learn more about mechanics and things? How do you get here? And you said Coach Day is so detail oriented, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're getting just so much smarter each day?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been, like I said earlier, I've been very blessed to be around a lot of really good coaches, and taking little bits and pieces from all of them. There's things in this offense that I really love, things that I'm like, oh, I've never seen that before or heard it taught that way, and I really, really like that. And so you kind of just cherry pick what you like, and there's a lot of things to like here. So.
Time for a couple more. Over at far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
What's an obscure detail that Ryan has brought up and you went, what?
Off the top of my head, I don't know if I can. I mean, even something as little as ball carriage, when you're on the run, just not having it down here and then having to bring it all the way up because that'll throw off your accuracy or timing or whatever. The motion of your body really when you're throwing, but just having it up high when you're coming off of the fake, I think was something so small, but it helped me a lot. So I'm sure that it's helped a lot of people too. So.
And final questions, second row middle, Doug Lamarice, the podcast.
Tristan, with your experience in the game, whenever there's a quarterback competition, what do quarterbacks need? What does the room need out of that competition to feel like everybody got a fair shot and a good decision was made? And what's a team need to know that hey, this is a good process and they're going to pick a good guy?
Yeah, I think reps probably. There's really no substitute for reps, right? Getting in the huddle and being put in some situations that are tough, like you do third down periods or blitz pickup periods, and sometimes there's really no way to display your courage on tape until you do it, like standing in the pocket and taking a hit and still delivering a strike downfield is a tough thing to do if you talk to anybody that's played quarterback. But watching at home, you don't think about those things very often. But I think that they got a good process here. These guys we all have been getting a lot of reps, plenty of opportunity to prove yourself to the coaches and to the teammates around us, and even just being day in and day out in the weight room. I mean, you can't fake that. They're going to find out who you are pretty fast, your teammates. And what's been great about being here is that I said this actually recently to somebody, that this is a blue chip program, but the guys in here they're blue collar guys, and that's something that Coach Mick does a really good job of, making sure that nobody's head gets too blown up. And that's one thing that I was surprised at when I got here was how amazing the guys were off the field and how cool they were. Because outside looking in, you're like Ohio State, how nice are these guys going to be? But I'm very blessed to be a part of this team for sure.
Blue chip, blue collar. You gonna trademark that?
Yeah, maybe I should make a shirt out of it. Huh? Yeah.
They don't like blue. Yeah, they don't like blue.
That's true. That's true. Probably shouldn't even said that in the interview. Right? Blue. You can't even say that color.
He said blue chip, blue collar.
Yeah. Probably can't even say. You're not supposed to say that at all, huh? Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.